Welcome to JWL Sports, where we review all the best sports clips from around the world. If this is your first time checking out a video, please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. We're watching a clip, first things first, talking about the New York Jets and Robert Saleh and Aaron Rodgers and who's more on the hot seat, who has more pressure, and kind of what the whole, outlook looks for them. To me, I haven't seen this clip yet, but when I was setting it up, I could see what the main question they were posing. I think it's so obvious that it's Saleh has the most pressure. I mean, to put all the pressure on Aaron Rodgers at this point in his career is comically absurd. Do I think Aaron Rodgers should have or could have had more success throughout his career? Definitely. Especially when you compare it to, say, a Tom Brady, or you could even see all the success that Patrick Mahomes is having so early on his career. But the pressure for him to now be able to do those things at this point in his career is absurd. Doesn't mean that he can't. It doesn't mean that he won't be a great quarterback or still be a good quarterback, or that there's maybe not some pressure for him to be a good quarterback. But people, let's say he comes back and he just can't do it because of his Achilles, or he just doesn't have it anymore. No one's going to hold his feet to the fire for that specific year. They will call him out for his career as a whole, but not this specific year. He won't be blasted in the sense of like he is a failure. They'll probably make fun of him, and people who hated him to begin with will probably do some victory laps and stuff. But it won't be the same level of like, you are a failure. You should have been able to do something and that you can't do. To me, that's where the pressure lies. You have pressure when you're expected to do something and then you just don't do it. There's a difference between just not doing something and just physically unable to do it. There's differences. So let's take a listen and see what they have to say, and then we'll break it down further from there.
Robert Saleh speaking at the league meetings in Florida last year. Sean Payton accused accurately the Jets trying to win the offseason. This year, Saleh's enjoying the air quotes quietness via Steve Weish. I think General Manager Joe Douglas has done a really nice job adding some really cool pieces to the football team. But yeah, it's quiet. Last year was a little loud, and welcome a little bit of quietness. Cool. Brew, who's under more pressure this year to make some noise? Saleh or Rodgers?
I mean, I'm shocked this is even a question.
Really?
I mean, I know we discussed it, but I'm still shocked that you got Saleh. He will likely get fired if they don't play well, and it will likely be his last head coaching job.
You think it'll be his last
head coaching?
Yeah,
right? I think he'll go somewhere as a DC or a defensive coach somewhere.
And maybe in a decade get another shot, but probably not. Yeah, I agree. Go ahead.
And Rodgers, I get he's running his mouth. And I've said it myself. They got a lot of nice players around him. It's on him if they can't make any noise. But if they don't make noise, if he's bad, guess what? He's 40. That's what it'll be. He's 40.
What I just said.
Everybody's not Tom Brady. It's not going to damage his legacy.
I disagree with that.
I think what's damaged his legacy to some degree, I guess, is all the chatter that he does, the theories and everything he throws out there. But his play, I don't think anybody's going to look at him as less of a quarterback if at 40 years old he doesn't play well with the Jets.
Well, he also didn't play well with the Packers.
Okay, for 1 year. He won the 2 MVPs 3-4 years ago.
So as you know, I famously say Aaron Rodgers hasn't thrown for 300 yards in 23 games, and that the Packers got right what the Patriots got wrong, where they saw a franchise quarterback and they saw that he was declining, and they said, you know what? It's time to go to our other guy, Jordan Love, and they've proven to be correct. And people yelled at me on social media, even though I'm beloved on social media, say, Wilds, what proof do you have that he's fallen off? I said, okay, Josh, can we make a list of quarterbacks who have thrown for 300 yards since Aaron Rodgers did? And here's the list, and I'll pass the ball to you, Nick, because there's 50 guys.
Really? Wow.
This is the list of guys who have thrown for 300.
Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
Okay, but that doesn't do what you think it does. That proves that little random stat like that is irrelevant. Okay, if Will Levis, Zach Wilson, Tyrod Taylor, and a couple other random guys are up there, and that shows that, like, look, they can do something that Aaron Rodgers didn't, well, then that means that that's a misleading statistic. Okay, so that's not the dunk that Wilds thinks it actually is indeed.
But all right.
Wow. I know that
there
was
is
just
everybody.
alphabetical by first name, but that was a hell of a punctuation at the end.
Yeah, so I think he needs to throw for 300 yards. I'm not sure he can.
Here's why I totally disagree with you, Brew. Who's under more pressure this season, Jason Tatum or Jordan Poole?
Tatum.
Of course, because there's expectations and he actually has a legacy. Robert Saleh ain't got no legacy. Robert Saleh is a long list of guys that was an excellent coordinator, that got a head coaching job, wasn't good at it, and go back to being a coordinator. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just what it is. And by the way, even if they win this year, or do well.
Oh, God. I'm sorry I keep pausing, but these takes are insane. That doesn't make any sense. Of course there's pressure on Saleh because he has the ability to either have a legacy or just be, an assistant coach, that just gets kind of lost in the weeds, okay? You either have a legacy in being a true head coach in the NFL for years to come, or a forgotten name of just like, oh, what was that time? What that team where they had that one DC, right? I think he was like the coach of the Jets that one time or something for like a little bit with like that quarterback, Aaron Rodgers or whatever, right? So it's like you literally have this opportunity for an entire life, a legacy, more money than you could ever dream of, or you essentially fail at your dream of becoming a true head coach in the NFL. To act like that there's no pressure in that situation is comically absurd. And I will prove it again right now. Let's using Nick Wright as a concrete example. Who has more pressure to have a better season as a commentator, okay? Stephen A. Smith, who has a whole legacy and all this, or Nick Wright, his first year on First Things First, where if he fails, he'll never be able to get, he'll never be able to be the lead host of a sports talk show again. Who has more pressure? Who's feeling that angst? Who's feeling that pressure of either all his dreams are going to come true or they're all going to collapse and it's back to the drawing board? We're going to act like there's no pressure on Nick Wright in that situation? Of course there is. That is so insane. Who has more pressure in a big movie? Leonardo DiCaprio, because there's all these expectations, who's had wild success, or the brand new actor who somehow managed to audition himself and get into, the new movie, Oppenheimer? Who's got more pressure? Okay? Because if he really does a great standout performance, who had more pressure? If you saw the movie, the Elvis movie, right? The guy, I can't think of his name right now. The guy who played Elvis, who majority of people had no idea who he was, or was it, any of the other more mainstream actors that everyone already knows, like Colin Hanks, or Tom Hanks. I mean, Colin Hanks is his son. Tom Hanks. It was Butler. I think the guy's last name was Elvis, because if he did a great performance, he is now in all the movies. He's now in Dune and, God knows what else, right? He has all the movies, all the ideas. Tom Hanks had a bad performance. People would say, nah, not one of Tom Hanks' best movies, but whatever. Dude's already got an Academy Award. He's already making movies left and right. Can't win them all. So that is so asinine. That makes no sense to me. Zero.
Well, this year, not win the Super Bowl, but have a good year. That's what's happening eventually. The Robert Saleh story is written. The question is if the final chapter is occurring in January of 2025 or January of 2026. That's it. Aaron's in a different boat because it's not about this year. It will be. It's an odd last half decade.
Oh, hold on. He won 2 MVPs in that half decade.
Exactly right.
Which is why he should have had more
Right.
success.
So here's the thing, Brew.
He was what, how old was he?
Brew, he's
37,
supposed to be a top 5 all-time guy. That's who he is. He's got 4 MVPs. Supposed to be won a Super Bowl. His 3rd year as a full-time starter. Won the Super Bowl. And then he had some weird, it's weird. It's like you're 15-1, you lose. You get blown out in back-to-back conference title games. It's weird, whatever. But then you get rid of McCarthy, you get LaFleur, you win MVPs, and how'd it go? Tom Brady comes into your building and beats you in his first year in the NFC. The next year, Jimmy Garoppolo comes into your building
He's a winner.
and you score 1 touchdown in that game, you lose 13-10. Then next year, the Detroit Lions come into your building to finish your career as a Packer out of the playoffs. Then next year you tear your Achilles. And then if this year goes bad, it's not about his age 40 season. It's about the last half decade. Like, how did Aaron Rodgers win 1 playoff game and 2 MVPs in the final 5 years of his career?
You know I am the champion of the Rodgers hasn't played well in NFC title.
Yes.
So I'm with you on everything you said up to this year. If we want to go back to the last half of his year and you want to debate him and Manning and all that, so that's fine. But this one season,
what I'm saying
nobody's going to say he wasn't good at 40. He wasn't as good as we thought he was.
What I'm saying is the only way to redeem this last verse of his career is by doing something with the Jets.
He's got to win a playoff game.
Like
one playoff game.
What's that going to do? If he wins 1 playoff game, what's that going to do?
I'm going to tell you that people, go back and look at Favre's end with the Packers. Not good. His year with the Jets, not good. But then he had that 1 year with Minnesota. Yeah. Well, he played 2, but the 1 great year. Almost won MVP, won a playoff game, got to the conference championship game.
And no one cares.
We don't look at Favre's last half,
And no one talks about Brett Favre really any differently. Whether he had that year or not, it doesn't matter. Now, if he won a Super Bowl, then sure, it would have elevated, Brett Favre even more. But at the end of the day, when everyone's talking about Brett Favre, no one's really imagining him in a Minnesota Vikings uniform. They're just not, And I know the play, and I know the interception, and the games and stuff, and so I get it. But this whole idea that we love to just point random moments and be like, this is what we remember in the legacy of this player. It's just not really true. I mean, again, like when people, first off, who's really talking about Brett Favre now anyway? No one. So I always love this conversation, this idea of like legacy and doesn't, and what will people say about this? How often do any of you guys talk about Brett Favre? How often do any of you guys talk about Peyton Manning at this point? The only reason why we're still talking about Tom Brady is because of Patrick Mahomes right now. Because Patrick Mahomes is so good that people are having the conversation of, can he pass Brady? Is he better than Brady right now, right? If Patrick Mahomes was just more like average, let's say Patrick Mahomes is winning only like 1 Super Bowl or whatever, people would just be talking about these players in general. They wouldn't be keep bringing him, bringing up, Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes in the same sentence again and again and again. And it's not to say that no one talks about Tom Brady. I'm not saying that Tom Brady is just completely irrelevant, but we so sparingly bring up these players of the past and talk about their legacy and really unpack it and really dig deep. The reason why people talk about Michael Jordan even so much right now is because of LeBron James, and it's always in the conversation of who's better, who's the GOAT. That's where the conversation always is. People aren't just casually bringing up Michael Jordan's legacy and just marinating it and talking about it. Just like no one's doing that about Peyton Manning. No one's talking about Brett Favre right now. They're just not. Who talks about John Elway? When is the last time you and your friends were all just hanging out and you just brought up John Elway? Oh, how about John Elway? He was really good, wasn't he? Okay, cool. Name me 3 plays that he did that you remember right now. You have 20 seconds. Name 3 huge plays. You can't name 3, okay? Tell me the year he won the Super Bowl and against who? You have to probably really think about it for a second. So this whole idea of this legacy and, everyone's going to look back and be like, what did he do? No. It ends up just being a number, right? Because a lot of times when we look at legacies, it just ends up being stats. It'll be random highlights of, him dropping back and throwing and diving and doing this and going for a run, right? And then it'll show the stats. And it'll say, the first 15 years of his career, he had a passer rating of this and that and threw for this and look at this and this and that. And then, as he got older, he fizzled out in the last 5 years of his career, yada, yada, yada. And it just ends up as an afterthought, an asterisk. It's just like, yeah, that's what happens, I mean, was Peyton Manning balling out? No. Peyton Manning won a Super Bowl and played horrible, okay? Couldn't throw the ball more than 3 yards down the field. I mean, get out of here. He didn't even play the whole season, okay? So this whole idea and no one talks about that. When they talk about Peyton Manning and how many Super Bowls he won and this and that, no one talks about it. No one talks about how he practically stole a Super Bowl, okay? So I just think it's kind of nonsense, this idea that it'll be so damaging to his legacy in the immediate short term, and it'll give fuel to the pundits on TV and online and stuff, and they'll be able to do a victory lap like Nick Wright is doing, which is what I said at the top of this clip. People will try to do a victory lap, but outside of that, fast forward 5, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, no one is going to talk about that. No one 20 years from now is going to be like, well, Aaron Rodgers did get a little weird at the end. No. I mean, Brett Favre had a scandal, a pretty big scandal, and people don't even talk about it. It's just an afterthought. Like, no one even mentions it. They're not mentioning it here as they're talking about, tarnished legacies or legacies that ended, weirdly. So I just reject that notion, completely. So, do I think Aaron is under some pressure? Absolutely. And more pressure for himself. He wants to compete. He wants to win a championship. He wants to be a savior, right? I'm sure in his mind also he's thinking, man, if I can win a Super Bowl in New York, that'll be amazing. That'll be exciting. New York will love me, right? It'll be an epic moment, right? It'll be massive. Put it this way. This will be like my final thought. If he wins a Super Bowl, the force multiplier of his legacy will be way bigger, way bigger than if he loses and doesn't play and doesn't end up winning a Super Bowl or, make a playoff run, right? Tom Brady winning that Super Bowl was like, okay, he is him. No ifs, ands, or buts, no doubts. He is legendary. Oh my God, right? If anyone ever thought, I don't know, it's okay. Yep, Tom Brady. But if he didn't win with Tampa, people weren't going to be like, he's overrated, he's the worst. It would have given some fuel to the whole Belichick versus Tom Brady, but it wouldn't have been the nail in the coffin. See, he could only win without, he could only win with Bill. That's it. That's the end of the story. No ifs, ands, or buts. It's just not that extreme. So to me, that's what the similar thing is with Aaron is. Not to mention, Aaron does have the embedded excuse of he tore his Achilles. So on one side, we say the Achilles is like your Achilles, right? It's like the death sentence for you. And yet on the other side, then we say, well, if Aaron doesn't play well, that's all on him. And, there you go. It's like, well, the last half decade, 2 of those years will technically be involved with Achilles injury at 40 years old. So we got to be consistent with this type of stuff. Kind of drives me a little crazy, but those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. Who do you think's under more pressure, Robert Saleh or Aaron Rodgers? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get into some discussions, let's get into some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel good about, something that we all are really excited to be part of, and I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.